Hello and welcome back. So next we're going to look at primitives and complex data types. Now you'll hear people say that everything in JavaScript is an object, and this is true. But JavaScript does have what it calls primitives. Now a true primitive has no methods or properties attached to it. JavaScript does not have that. JavaScript instead has sort of a version of that. But they are objects because you have methods and properties defined on them. So to show that, go to primitives.js, and I added the debugger statement to these two functions. So that way whenever they run, we'll be able to see what occurs. And you'll see people that'll tell you not to use one of these versions, and I'm going to show you why. So as we step over our code here, it'll start to define things. So we have primitive strings, which is where we just set something equal to a string, a primitive number, we just set it equal to 1. And this syntax is called the literal syntax versus the constructor syntax you see down here. So if I click right here and I go to more tools, I can pop open a little console that'll enable me to execute code while this is going on. So for example, if I say prim string, you'll see that this is a primitive string. So the first thing is type of prim string. And you'll see here that it's going to tell me this is a string. Likewise, when I go through the other ones, if I say type of prim number or type of prim bool. Now, one of these is a bug, and that's going to be type of prim null equal to object. Brendan Ike has said this is a bug, but it's part of the core language, so there's no way to fix it. JavaScript has two bottom values, null and undefined, undefined being the primary one, and it's debatable if whether or not you should even have a bottom value in a language, but you should never have two. So this is considered one of the very unfortunate bugs inside of JavaScript. Now that's the literal syntax. I'm going to hit the continue button right here, and that's just going to keep executing until it gets to the next debugger statement here. So now when we step through it, you can see another way that we can do this is a more Java version of this. We can use the new keyword, but this has a huge downside. And the huge downside is that whenever we look at things like obj number, you can see that it looks really weird, and that's because internally this is different than creating it like this. Worse than that is that for all of these different pieces, when we say type of ob string, it's always going to be an object. Everything here is just an object. Now, a lot of people use these type of checks to make sure that the right thing has been passed in. So for example, strings have a length property on them, but so do arrays. So someone might use the type of operator to figure out whether or not this is a string or whether or not it's an array. But if you use the new keyword here to create these and you use the constructor syntax, then this check isn't going to work. They're going to have no way of knowing. Now, the next way, and if you click right here, this is going to set up another breakpoint. The other problem that you get is that you cannot do what are known as strict equality checks. So for example, here we have prim string, and then here we have object string. And just to show you, this is actually a string of characters, but here's the value, this is a string. So they should both be equivalent. Now in JavaScript, if you use the double equal sign, you're doing a value only check, and that's going to check this primitive value here. So if I say prim string equals ob string, prim string, a little misspelling there, that's true. But if I try it with the triple equal sign, that's going to be false. So that means a lot of people's code is going to fail because they're going to be doing a strict equality check, and that's going to fail. And that's what this 2B is. 2B in Jasmine means triple equal check, whereas 2 equal means double equal check. So all these are going to be different from each other. And that'll exit us out of there. So the bottom line is whenever you're using JavaScript, you always want to create your primitives with the literal syntax, just var x equals, and then whatever it is you want, or var y equals 10. There is one exception to this where the literal syntax doesn't work, and that is with date objects. you must use new date in order to get a new date in JavaScript. And the regex one requires new regex. This one can sometimes be necessary because when you use this version, it will create the regular expression you're going to use on the fly. And we'll get to that a bit later. But for right now, know those are the two exceptions. And just like everything in JavaScript, there's always these weird exceptions you have to keep track of. So that's a brief introduction to primitives and how they differ from complex data types, and also why we generally want to use the literal syntax and not the constructor syntax, which uses the new keyword to create a new object.